Males, what's the craziest reaction you've had when you said, "No thanks, I don't want to have intercourse"? Viewer edition.
Oh, me? Sorry. I've had too much intercourse. I couldn't possibly do any more. Well, maybe just a little bit. Oh, boy. Actually, I'm sure these stories will be just fine and not awful and gross because they're coming from you in our comments. And I like you folks. So let's get to it. Story 1. She started off quiet. I guess she was just processing a no in bed. That quiet turned into rampant texting right next to me, my bed, so nowhere to go. After about 20-ish minutes, she started asking about every flaw she considered herself to have, which I basically ignored and hinted I was just drained from the week. This turned into her insisting I like men because she's too much of a catch to be ignored. Started rattling off a list of my flaws, then a list of guys she's been with. Turns out she'd been with about every single guy in my town. I asked her to leave and she demanded a ride. She lived 5 houses down. I said no and she called the cops, insisting I tried to R her. They did whatever test they had to do and I never heard of it again. Never saw her again either, which is hard to accomplish in a small town, but she vanished. Hope you don't have kids, Ashley. For the love of all that is holy, please don't have kids. Wowzers! That's a rough start. I can see someone being a bit self-conscious when you're in a moment and then it's like, hey, you want to do the and the other person's like, I do not. Surely people will get self-conscious. I would get self-conscious too. But there is a line, and she's definitely crossing a line. Folks, you can't take some of these things too personally. Men or women sometimes aren't in the mood. And you got to be able to take no. No means no, and it's an okay answer. Story 2. My ex, let's call her H, showed up at my apartment one day as I was getting back from work with a male friend of mine. Let's call him J. We were planning on having a few drinks and just chilling, so we pulled up and she's sitting on the steps waiting for me. Side note, I hadn't talked to her in about 3 months at this point and never told her where I lived. She ran up to me almost in tears, saying she wanted to work things out. I begrudgingly agreed and we all headed upstairs. After a few hours, Jay and I had 3 beers each out of a 6-pack we bought, and H wanted to join in too. I had some tequila, her favorite, that she helped herself to, and at this point, Jay had to leave so that he could drive home without being too drunk, leaving H and I alone. We talked for a bit and I went to use the restroom. I came back out and she had made us some shots. I initially declined because I was already a bit nervous about her being there in the first place, and she was very touchy when drunk, and told her I don't want to drink with her or sleep with her. But she kept pressing the issue and I finally relented and had the shots. Now keep in mind, I was a regular drinker then, so 3 beers and 2 shots was light for me at the time. Next thing I know, I'm waking up in my bed with her on top of me and extremely drowsy. Then it's noon the next day when I finally wake up with her next to me and both of us naked. I had the worst headache of my life. I rushed to the bathroom to throw up, and when I came back out, she asked if I had fun last night. I told her to leave because I didn't feel good. She then proceeded to yell at me, called me several names, then got dressed and left. Later, she begged me not to tell anyone what happened over text, and I told her I didn't even know what happened. Fast forward 2 months, and my dad is asking her if I R'd H. I told him no, and that I didn't even know what happened, only I felt like death the next day, and he said, okay, but my stepmother still calls me an R'ist to this day. This all happened in 2014. Okay, this is a pretty serious thing, and it sounds like she took advantage of you. It even sounds like potentially you might have been roofied. I don't know. I was not there. I cannot speak to this with any kind of authority. But if something like that happens and you're made to be uncomfortable, I will tell you and I will tell anyone watching that you report that. You should know when things happen. And if you only had those couple drinks and suddenly you're, drowsy and out, that's concerning. And that should never happen. Whether it's, a guy doing this to a woman or a woman doing this to a guy, that's not okay. That is assault, worse terms that YouTube hates. Yeah, I hope you're okay.
Story 3. I was 16 and dealing with my first breakup ever, so I was pretty depressed. My friends, after I refused to hang out, or if I did, being a downer and not really being present, told me to stop being a bee and just try and date someone else. So I did. There was this girl who I would occasionally catch looking at me and had apparently asked my friends on a few occasions if I was seeing anyone. I had never really taken a liking to her, even though she was pretty, and she gave off this high-maintenance vibe. One day, we were all hanging out and my friends made it so me and this girl were left alone with each other. She ended up asking me out and I said, sure. We went out a couple times and honestly, I felt more like an accessory, if that makes any sense. I talked to my friends about this and they said to give it time and that I'd eventually connect with this girl. Didn't make sense to me, but I listened. One day we were watching a movie at her place when her mom said she was heading to the store. As soon as her mom drove away, she was trying to jump on me. I say trying because I wasn't having any of it. I got off the sofa quickly and told her that I wasn't really into her like that and to maybe wait. She then proceeded to have a full-on breakdown. She asked me if I thought she was pretty. I told her it wasn't that she wasn't attractive, but that I was still hurting from a previous relationship. Something flipped inside her because she went from crying to straight up yelling me and calling me F and all sorts of things. Next day at school, she had told people that I was gay and that she was the one who had broken up with me. Unfortunately, I had her friends in my PE class and they would yell at me from the sidelines asking if I was gay. Luckily, I only made it through one semester of my sophomore year before I got transferred to a different school. Story 4. I remember it clearly. Our relationship had just started. I tried bringing up a topic in which I had something important to say. The topic was intercourse. She cut me off and said, "It's too early to talk about that now." I said, all right, and left it alone. A month and some days go by. She started escalating things while we were on my couch. Eventually, she said she wanted to have intercourse with me. I told her no. She became sullen for the rest of the day, then went home. And after a few days of being withdrawn, she broke up with me over a text. If she hadn't cut me off when I first brought the topic up, she would have known that I didn't ever intend on having intercourse with her. Edit. Forgot to mention the rumors she spread that I was gay, which hits a bit harder when you're a guy who's never had a haircut before.
Okay, so this is a fairly short story, and I obviously do not have all the context. I can't know what each person said back and forth. The only thing that I will say that might help future people who think they're having a problem like this, communicate. Always communicate and get your point across. If someone says it's too early to talk about that now, make sure you try and talk about it later. Bring it up. Make sure you're having these conversations, because not talking about it for a few months and then dropping it on a person because they didn't want to talk about it at the very beginning isn't great. Now, I think that people should be open to those conversations right away. It's an important conversation to have. So her saying, it's too early to talk about that, it's not what I would want someone to do, but I can also understand. I don't know what she's been through, so maybe, she needed a little time to warm up to that. Just communicate, folks. Make sure you're always communicating and don't hold grudges and drop things on people later. Not saying that that's what this person did. I don't have the context, but that stuff's important.
Story 5. Back in college, 2004, I worked on computers as a side gig to pay for rent and food. I had this girl call me up to look at her rig. I go in and there's no power at all. It looks like the power supply let out some of the magical smoke. I told her it was going to be $50. She agreed and I left to grab the parts. I often just stole the parts from the campus because why not? I got back and her girlfriend was there. I started getting to work and that's when they started to get into one another. About the time I start wrapping things up, they are down to their bra and panties, really getting hot and heavy. I fired up the PC and boom, all good. I turn and say, it's done. I'm going to need that cash. I am then hit with the, if you forget the money, you can stay and watch. I politely decline, reminding we agreed that it was my parts that I was not charging for. That's when her girlfriend piped up with the, "Oh, playing hardball, are you? Fine, how about if you join in?" Now this is where I actually took pause because I was in no way a looker and I was pushing like a fat 335 pounds, and this may be the only time in my life, and now they were not 10s, but decently not bad looking. I'm standing there and they're laughing because they can see the hamsters in my head running as fast as it could. Finally, I turned them down politely and said, "I need the cash for rent, etc." That went over as well as a dingleberry in an orgy. They were peed. I mean, really peed. The girl who hired me stomped over to her purse and handed me the cash and yelled to get out when they slammed the door. You can hear about me being gay or I was scared or showing my small peepee, things like that. Even part of me was like calling myself bad names, but that only lasted till the next job. I later ran into her on campus, and it turned out me not falling for their ploy really damaged their self-worth. She asked what the real reason was not to join in, and when I heard her rent, she still did not believe me. Story 6. Had a girlfriend for about a year from late freshman year in high school to a little over sophomore. Not sure if this story goes here, but I'll say it anyway. Also, this was essentially day-to-day, not one specific occurrence. From about a month after we started dating, her family took an immediate dislike to me for no particular reason. She also was the second most emotional person I have ever met. She would want to spend hours texting me for no reason other than to talk, which was understandable. I could make decent conversation and had a crack-headed sense of humor, random as hell. For the majority of our time, she mainly was emotionally manipulative and heavily made innuendos left and right. Like, she did that and essentially held a big sign that said, "Intercourse?" at all times. She also got ridiculously annoyed and would start to act like she was depressed and self-harming whenever I turned her down. She had no mental problems, was just an a-hole. Despite this, constantly I said no for two reasons. One being that she constantly asked from early on in our relationship, and for whatever reason, I thought that was suspicious. Two, even if I wanted to, where she was never home alone, I had no means of getting there, and as her parents hated me, watched me like hawks. Anyhow, to sum up the next 7 months, the family dislikes me more, and she talked with two other dudes, one of which for 8 months, that she immediately gets with after we split. The only satisfying part was at the end when, right after we broke up, I had the pleasure of announcing that I'm keeping the present I got her for her birthday, which will not be named but cost me a little over $100 of my own money. I had no job at the time.
I mean, to each their own. You know, you didn't feel comfortable with that, and she should have respected that. Absolutely, she should have respected your desire not to engage in intercourse. At the same time, these are once again things that, with my limited perspective, that's what I'm going on here, folks, so don't get at me in the comments being like, "Oh, but what if?" I don't know what if. I'm just giving generalizations based on this, but you need to have these conversations and talk these things out, and if you can't reach an agreement and understanding, that's a problem. Don't let it grow into a bigger problem. I mean, it's not the perfect solution. I don't know everything that's going on here. Maybe they did try to do that and it still didn't work out. That's going to happen too. Just try to talk more is my advice, I guess. Talk is my advice. God, I'm useless.
Story 7. I really think a lot of these stories are down to people, women, having a wrong understanding of male intimacy. Society and the media have convinced my girlfriend and me that men in general want to always be doing it. When we got together, we both had no intimate experiences before, so we both just assumed everything we heard about intercourse to be true. The first time I wasn't in the mood for it, my girlfriend was devastated. She was certain I didn't love her anymore or I didn't find her attractive. And even I thought there was something wrong with me. But turns out, once men leave puberty behind, just like women, they aren't always in the mood for intimate activity. This seems obvious, but I still hear and read stuff like, if a man doesn't want to do it, he either sucks in bed, cheats, or there must be something wrong with his health. Literally read that in a women's magazine. Him just not being in the mood for it generally isn't even considered a possibility. Story 8. I was dating a girl in high school, and right off the bat, I told her I wasn't interested in intercourse. I'm old-fashioned in my beliefs. Take it what you will. She said it was fine. Fast forward a few months, and some rocky things in each of our lives, a breakup and get back together included, and something happened. I learned from a mutual friend that she had her ex over and did it with him. I confronted her about it, and she said it was because I wouldn't do it with her. Of course, I dumped her. She got mad about this and then started making claims I R'd her. Thankfully, she never went to the police about it, and it stayed within the student body of the school. Very few people believed her, thankfully, and I was able to dispel the rumor, but it was terrifying nonetheless. Story 9. My ex-wife used the withholding of intercourse to exert power and control, a way to manipulate and extort me into giving her her way on everything. The last time she did it, I decided to stop bringing up intercourse at all. Never mentioned it again. Several months later, she came into the living room wearing something she knew worked for me. I didn't respond at all. After a while, she basically asked if I wanted to fool around, trying to be all seductive. I just said, no thanks. Never asked her for intercourse again. Never accepted her offers. I had taken away her power to use intercourse as a means of extortion, and she really wanted that power back. 4 years later, she met some simp online and took off. Adios, puppet master. In May, my lovely and loving wife and I will be celebrating our 25th anniversary. She doesn't play those silly games. So what happened when I turned down intercourse? I freed myself from an extortionist and can no longer be manipulated with intercourse.
Boy, that's a lot. Once again, I can only go with the context I've been given. And it does sound like, if your ex-wife was doing that, using intercourse to exert power and manipulate you, that is not okay. But boy, it doesn't sound like, obviously this wasn't a great relationship for you and you got out and you're with someone that you work a lot better with. But boy, if you have to deny any kind of intercourse with a person and hold this over them for 4 years, you should be dropping out sooner than that. There are bigger problems going on in that relationship. Talk about things, folks.
Story 10. I've turned down intercourse like 4 times before I got married. I had strong beliefs in my 20s, some of which I still hold to this day, and I ended up waiting until marriage with my current wife. The first girl was my girlfriend when I was 16. Her name was Ashley, and that's literally the most generic girl name on the planet, so good luck finding her. Her grandma encouraged us to have intercourse. She was a hippie and believed in free love. When I said no, Ashley broke up with me because turning down intercourse was a red flag, according to her grandma. The second girl I refused was a white girl with dreads. I went on a date with her and she immediately proposed we do it. I was not ready to do that yet, and considering my history, I instantly turned her down and said I wasn't interested. She started crying and left. The third girl was a girl whose dad was in a Christian death metal band. Her dad sang about the evils of abortion, which made it all the more disturbing when she proposed having unprotected intercourse to me. I refused, and she had a meltdown and left. The last girl was a 35-year-old woman who proposed to me while I was dancing with her at a local swing dance venue. I said, let me think about it, and finished the dance and told her I wasn't interested. Anyways, oh crap, there's a fifth one. I went on one date with her and she tried to touch my leg in the car on the way home. I told her I wasn't ready yet and she ghosted me. The only person who respected my wishes is my wife. Ladies, just because he says no doesn't mean he doesn't want to marry you. He might just have convictions. Story 11. Society tells us men are horny and always looking/thinking of intercourse, especially from attractive women. Some women start to value their attractiveness based on how many guys want to sleep with them, and that makes them feel desired and wanted, basically affirming they are pretty. So when they come across a man that doesn't want to sleep with them, even if it has nothing to do with their looks, they take it personally and get defensive. They start to find ways in dismissing any possible scenario that perhaps the guy just isn't into them by calling him gay and undermining his sexuality to save face. They might even take it a step further in trying to force themselves on the man like we see in the video. Either way, it's a bunch of insecure women that use intercourse for men as some sort of validation and ego booster. They are highly manipulative and violent. Honestly, it's so unfair that most times they get away with it because men can't be as assaulted. So freaking irritating. I wish I can just deck all these dumb bees in the face, for real.
Honestly, I can agree with the point that I think some of these reactions that we've been seeing where women start, saying, oh, you're probably gay, or, oh, what's wrong with me? Are you not attracted to me? All that. I think that can definitely come from insecurity. That's, society says, boy, if a man doesn't want you, there's something wrong, this and that. And society does same things against men. They're screwing with them. It's terrible. I don't know that I'd say that they're all highly manipulative and violent. Some of them certainly are. And guys, you need to be careful of that. Just like women need to be careful of it with guys or other women or non-binary, whatever. But I wouldn't say that they're all like that. Some people are just insecure and they're letting it kind of screw up their perception of things. Everyone's learning and growing. I screw up all the time, and I hope I'm not awful.
Story 12. I declined intercourse more than a few times. One girl accepted it gracefully, which was cool. We're still friends. Another girl pulled the guys can't say no to intercourse thing and pouted the rest of the night. Refused to talk to me and then cheated on me with her best friend by midnight. Told me she did as a courtesy and we never spoke again. Another girl cried and literally threw a fit. I told her to grow up and that if she said no, I'd have to respect that. Why couldn't she? She told me to get out. Good riddance. Story 13. I've been in a happy relationship for over 15 years. About 12 years ago, I was at a club and a girl asked me if I would go home with her, not a request I hear often. I told her I had a girlfriend and she said, that's okay, I have a boyfriend. I discovered months later that he was her fiancé. I told her I was flattered, but no. She spent the whole rest of the night basically assaulting me, albeit in minor ways, pretending to want to talk to me and then kissing me, etc. I often wonder why no one did anything about it when the reverse situation would probably have got me banned from the club. Story 14. I am asexual. This is something it seems like nobody understands. My first relationship I didn't have to worry about because she didn't want intercourse, she just used me to get to a friend. But my second and third relationships kept pushing me to try intercourse, but I kept telling them no. They would get mad at me, but not go crazy, just get offended, and we went back to what we were doing. My second one broke up with me after not putting out for her, and my third was the only time I did the breaking up. I felt like I couldn't please her because I didn't like intercourse, so I told her that she could find someone better that liked intercourse. So currently I'm single, and I honestly love it. Nobody to pressure me into having intercourse.
Man, so my sympathies to you. I have a couple ace friends who, they're not interested. And they have dealt with those people who get into a relationship going, no, it's totally okay that you are. That doesn't bother me. But then their partner starts to pressure them. Folks, if you're going to get into a relationship with someone who's ace, you need to be understanding of that. And that needs to truly be okay. Because if you do have, physical needs, if touch is a love language or however you want to, define it, then that is something that at the minimum requires a big conversation, open and honest with the person, or it might mean that you're just not going to be compatible, and that's okay too.
Story 15. I have a few of these stories. So I am a private investigator and my work often has me going to bars to watch targets. Over the last year, I've been very directly asked for intercourse 19 times and numerous dates. Half still had their wedding bands on. Having just divorced myself from my own cheating wife, I plainly state I am not interested. Of those 19, 4 just walked away or started begging. The rest were a mix of 9 drinks thrown at me, slapped 3 times, punched once, and 2 went to the bartender and claimed I groped them. What's even worse is even after they reviewed the security footage, I was the one asked to leave 10 times, but the women never got kicked out or arrested. Story 16. That's the thing. When a girl rejects a guy, people will say, you did the right thing. There's better guys out there. But when a guy rejects a girl, people say, are you stupid? That girl's so cute. You're so dumb for rejecting her. Honestly, bro society is so stupid. I just can't take it anymore. Story 17. The girls who said the nice men were leading them on are so funny. Apparently, a girl who liked me in high school more than a decade ago, who I never liked at all but was kind to, still calls me her ex-boyfriend to her husband and toddler. Learned this through a mutual friend as I haven't seen her or even really remembered she existed, lol. Story 18. I didn't want to do it with my best girlfriend because I knew she slept around and probably had something. We ended up alone and she was annoyingly insisting on us doing it. She started to insult me, so I just left, but she was peed at me for weeks until she found out she had some STD. I made fun of her for that. Of course, that was also one of many abusive things she did. I'm glad I got away from her. Story 19. I get called gay or scared almost every time I reject a girl. It's a defense mechanism for the insecure. Same reason some dudes call girls ugly after they get rejected. People really need to learn how to deal with getting turned down.
There we go. Another person with, some good insights. A lot of this stuff on both sides is a defense mechanism. It doesn't make it okay to be crappy to another human being. Ladies, it's not okay to call a guy gay just because he's not interested in that. There's nothing wrong with being gay, but you don't question someone's preferences like that. And guys, it's not okay to call a girl ugly if they reject you. 100% this person gets it. Learn how to deal with getting turned down. It hurts and it sucks. Absolutely. I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel that, but you shouldn't use it as a weapon.
Story 20. She threw a raging hissy fit and called me the Ice Prince of Denmark. I laughed my butt off because it was a truly magnificent insult. 3 months later, she broke up with me by introducing me to her fiancé at a party. A fiancé that, as far as I knew, she did not have when we were seeing each other. Story 21. I told my ex that I didn't want to do it after working a 20-hour security shift. She said she just wanted me to come by because it was winter and she wanted to cuddle. I came by and fell asleep, waking up 2 hours later to her riding me because she said she was playing with my second head and got it hard in my sleep, so she took that as consent. Story 22. The first time I declined intercourse with my ex, she asked, "Is it because you don't find me attractive anymore?" and started crying. That escalated over time to asking me if it was because I didn't love her anymore, actively criticizing me in bed, calling me selfish, playing off insecurities I had disclosed, etc. There's a reason she's now my ex. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.